There is a story you have been telling yourself for your entire life. It is not a story you chose, it was given to you. It was assembled from fragments of childhood experiences, from the casual remarks of others, from the silent assumptions of your culture, and from the deep, invisible scars of your personal history. The story is simple, and it is devastatingly effective. It goes something like this. This is who I am. This story is a quiet, dangerous lie. It is the most elegant prison ever designed because the bars are made of your own thoughts and the warden is your own sense of self. The story whispers to you that the person you are today, with all your anxieties, your habits, your limitations, your natural talents, and your inherent weaknesses, is a fixed and finished thing. It tells you that your mind, your personality, is a solid object, carved in stone, a final draft submitted to the universe, and you believe it. You believe it because it feels true. The patterns are so predictable, the reactions are so consistent, the failures are so familiar. But if you have ever felt trapped by this character you were forced to play, if you have ever had a fleeting glimpse of another version of yourself, a version that is calmer, stronger, focused, and free, and then watched in despair as that vision faded, pulling you back into the gravitational field of the familiar, then you need to listen very closely. The feeling of being trapped is real, but the cage is not. Your struggle is not because you are weak or broken or fundamentally flawed. It is because you do not realize you are living inside a system that is not only designed to be rewritten, but is being rewritten by you in every single moment. You decide to change. It's January 1st, or a Monday, or your birthday, a clean slate. You feel a powerful surge of motivation, a clarity you haven't felt in years. This time you tell yourself it will be different. You buy the running shoes, you throw out the junk food, you download the meditation app, you read the books, you listen to the podcasts. For 1 week, maybe 2, you are a stranger to yourself. You are disciplined, you are focused, you feel like a new person, operating on a higher plane of existence. You think, I've finally done it, I've broken the code. Then, a bad day at work, a sleepless night, a moment of stress, a flicker of the old temptation, and the descent begins. It's not a dramatic collapse, it's a slow, quiet, almost imperceptible erosion. The morning workout is skipped just this once. The single bite of junk food becomes a full meal. The 5 minutes of meditation feel like an impossible chore. And within a few weeks, the old you returns like a ghost reclaiming its territory. The old thoughts echo in your mind. The old cynical reactions feel natural again. The old limitations feel like immutable laws of your own personal physics. And the story you tell yourself changes from one of hope to one of resignation. See? I knew it. This is just who I am. I always quit. I can't stick with anything. This cycle is the most common human tragedy. It is the slow, grinding death of potential. And the most heartbreaking part is that you blame yourself. You internalize the failure as a fundamental flaw in your character. But it's not because you are lazy. It's not because you are undisciplined. It's because what is happening to you is entirely natural, predictable, and a profound misunderstanding of the material you were working with. You are a master sculptor who has been convinced he is made of granite, when in reality he has been holding a block of soft, warm, infinitely malleable clay all along. Your failure is not a failure of will, it is a failure of physics. In the science of materials, there is a fundamental property that separates dead, brittle matter from living, adaptable potential. It is the property of plasticity. A rock, a piece of glass, a crystal. These are materials with low plasticity. When you apply pressure to them, they resist. They hold their form up to a certain point, and then when the pressure becomes too great, they don't bend, they shatter. They break into 1,000 pieces. They cannot become something new under pressure. They can only be destroyed by it. The change is catastrophic and irreversible. But then there are other materials. A piece of heated plastic, a lump of soft clay, a bar of warm metal. These materials possess high plasticity. When you apply pressure to them, they don't shatter, they yield, they deform, they change. A sculptor presses their thumb into a block of clay, and the clay doesn't resist, it accepts the pressure and holds the new impression. The pressure doesn't break it, it redefines it. The force is not an attack, it is information. The material records the history of the pressures applied to it. The simple law is this: if a system lacks plasticity, any significant external pressure will only ever lead to fracture and collapse. But if a system possesses plasticity, that same pressure becomes the very tool of its transformation. Your brain is not a rock. Your brain is not a crystal. Your brain, of all the objects in the known universe, is the most plastic, the most malleable, the most adaptable material we have ever discovered. This property is called neuroplasticity, and it is not a fringe theory or motivational concept. It is the fundamental, observable physical law governing the structure of your mind. It is the mechanism by which you become who you are. Every single day, with every single thought, with every single action, you are physically re-sculpting the organ inside your head. You are, quite literally, building the architect of your own reality. This is not a metaphor. It is a physical process. The brain is made of approximately 86 billion neurons, and these neurons communicate with each other across connections called synapses. Every time you think a thought, feel an emotion, or perform an action, a specific set of neurons fires in a specific pattern. The foundational rule of neuroplasticity is simple. Neurons that fire together wire together. When you repeat a thought or an action, the connection between those firing neurons becomes stronger, faster, and more efficient. The synaptic pathway becomes coated in a fatty substance called myelin, which acts like insulation on an electrical wire, allowing the signal to travel with greater speed and less resistance. Think of it like this. Your brain is a vast, dense jungle. The first time you think a new thought, it's like hacking a path through that jungle with a machete. It's slow, difficult, and requires enormous effort. The path is barely visible. But if you walk that same path the next day, it's slightly easier. The third day, even more so. After weeks and months of walking the same path, you are no longer hacking through the jungle. You have worn a clear, wide trail. After years, you have paved a 6-lane superhighway. The electrical signal of that thought no longer struggles. It travels at the speed of light down a pathway of zero resistance. This is what a habit is. A habit is not a choice you make. A habit is a superhighway you have already built. Now, consider the implications of this. When you constantly worry about the future, you are not just thinking negative thoughts. You are physically practicing the skill of anxiety. You are taking your mental chisel and carving the pathways of worry deeper and deeper into the structure of your brain. You are making your brain, on a physical level, better at being anxious. It becomes the default path, the path of least resistance for any stray electrical signal. This is why a small, insignificant trigger can lead to a catastrophic spiral of anxiety. The water of a stray thought simply flows down the deepest canyon you've carved. Conversely, when you practice gratitude, even for a few minutes a day, you are not just performing a pleasant mental exercise, you are hacking a new trail through the jungle. At first, it feels forced and artificial, but with repetition, you are building a new neural superhighway for positivity. You are physically altering your brain to make it more efficient at noticing the good. When you learn a new language or a musical instrument, you are not just storing information. You are engaged in a massive physical construction project inside your skull. You are building new cities of neural connections, entire networks dedicated to this new skill. This law is always at work. It is impartial, it is relentless, it is happening right now as you listen to these words. Your brain is not a passive receiver of experience, it is an active participant, constantly rewriting its own source code based on one single input, where you place your attention. Your identity is not a fixed point written in your DNA. Your identity is a living sculpture, and your focused attention is the chisel. The question is not if you are sculpting. The only question is what you are sculpting. The fatal mistake, the tragedy that traps so many, is not that they don't try to change. It is that they try to change in a way that directly violates this fundamental law. They misunderstand the nature of the material they are working with. You try to use brute force on a system that only responds to repetition and focus. You try to use willpower to fight your thoughts. You have a negative thought, I'm not good enough, and you try to wrestle it into submission. You tell yourself, don't think that, think something positive. But what are you actually doing on a neurological level? You are focusing your attention directly on the negative thought. You are activating the very neural pathway you want to eliminate. By fighting it, you are feeding it. By resisting it, you are reinforcing it. You are taking the anxiety superhighway and adding another lane. It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing gasoline on it. This is the paradox of mental effort. The direct fight against a thought is the very act that strengthens it.
You believe you are fighting a character flaw. You think your procrastination or your anxiety is a deep moral failing, a permanent part of who you are. But you are not fighting a flaw. You are simply running a highly efficient, well-practiced software program. A program you wrote yourself, unintentionally, through thousands of hours of repetition. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a skill your brain has mastered. The system isn't broken, it's just running the wrong code with incredible efficiency. Your attempt to fix it with willpower is like a computer user screaming at the screen to change what's happening. The user doesn't realize they need to go into the code and write a new program. A person who understands neuroplasticity stops this futile war. They stop seeing themselves as a finished product, a static statue to be judged and criticized. They see themselves as a process, a living sculpture, perpetually unfinished, a garden, not a building. This shift in perspective is everything. They stop asking the destructive question, why am I like this? This question presupposes a fixed identity. It is a question born of the granite mindset. Instead, they start asking a new, more powerful, and more accurate question. What am I practicing being with every thought I entertain, with every action I take? This question reclaims their agency. It transforms them from a victim of their own personality into the architect of it. A person who understands plasticity doesn't try to erase old pathways. They know that's impossible. You cannot unpave a highway. Instead, they simply dedicate their energy, their focus, their attention to building new ones. They know the brain has a limited budget of energy and resources. The pathways that are used get stronger. The pathways that are ignored, that are starved of attention, begin to weaken. Their connections prune away. They become overgrown, neglected trails in the jungle. The old habit doesn't disappear in a flash of willpower. It slowly, quietly atrophies from lack of use. This is the quiet, patient, intelligent way of change. It is not a battle. It is an act of cultivation. Your brain does not need to be fixed. It is not broken. It is a perfectly functioning system that has simply become exquisitely good at running the programs you have repeatedly given it. To change, it doesn't need to be repaired. It needs to be given a new blueprint to build from, a new set of instructions to execute, a new path to walk. The blueprint is your intention. The instructions are your thoughts. The path is your actions. And so the work is not to become a warrior fighting against the darkness within you. The work is to become an artist, a sculptor, patiently and deliberately shaping the raw material of your own consciousness. You don't hammer the clay into submission. You guide it. You press into it. You add a piece here, smooth a piece there.
You step back, observe, and then make the next small, intentional move. You are not defined by the shape you are in today. You are defined by the direction you are currently sculpting. And the most beautiful part of this physical law is that you can always, in this very moment, pick up the chisel. You can always choose where to place your attention. You can always start a new path. The clay is always ready. The potential for a new form is always present. The question is never about your capacity to change. It is only ever about your willingness to begin the practice.